Sorry, everybody. We just looked at a picture that just came across our desk of Trump's ass in his golf pants. So we're just trying to keep it together here for you guys.
It's nice. It's very nice.
It is nice. It is nice, isn't it?
I think a lot of OnlyFans models would probably wish they had that ass.
I think if he opened an OnlyFans and, wore thongs and did that sort of stuff, I think that it would probably work.
Why doesn't he just open an OnlyFans and get a bunch of these MAGA Republicans to start paying for his OnlyFans, his exclusive content? And it's just him playing golf in his big pants, his big ass pants.
Yeah, and him and Melania doing exclusive content. I think that would work. But instead, he's focused too much on doing other things, like disturbing the Republican Senate elections. Like right now is the midterms, and I know for you guys in Canada that doesn't mean much, but it's October 19th, which means we're less than a month away from Election Day, which is November 8th, when we're going to have the midterm elections. So things are really heating up around here. There's political ads everywhere. There's signs up everywhere for people running. And things are starting to really heat up. So the Republicans are favored to flip the House. Their Republicans are, I'm looking at 538, which is a poll website. Basically what they do 40,000 different scenarios. They run elections 40,000 different times, and they see who wins most of the time. And then they do it out of 100. So in those 40,000 sample sizes, Republicans win 75 times out of 100. Democrats only win 25 times. So... Yeah, so the Republicans are pretty much, I don't want to say guaranteed to win the House, but they're definitely favored to win the House. Then when you look at the Senate, it's not exactly a sure thing. Republicans win 39 times out of 100, and Democrats win 61 times out of 100. So Democrats are, at this point, projected to win the Senate. There's a bunch of close states, states that we're watching really close, where the politicians for the Senate, they're basically running at like 50-50 in the polls right now. And you can't really tell with the polls. You don't really know who's going to end up pulling through. But the states that are sort of going to, we don't know which way they're going to flip. That's Pennsylvania, Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Ohio, and Colorado. Those are the ones that we're kind of watching closely. The ones that you'd probably recognize out of those, since that's just a bunch. Do you remember in Georgia, Raphael Warnock? Do you remember that guy?
Mm-mm.
This was back after Trump lost the election. That Georgia Senate race hadn't been done yet, and Trump went out in Georgia and was like, well, basically, you shouldn't even vote. You don't even have to vote because the whole thing's rigged. Remember that?
Trump said that?
Yeah, well, basically that's what he said. And then Republicans in Georgia didn't vote. And then Georgia, not only, Biden won the state of Georgia, but both of the House and the Senate were won, and both senators were won by Democrats, sorry.
So he kind of fucked over the Republican who's running for Senate there.
Yeah, he totally fucked him over. And this guy, Raphael Warnock, got elected. So he kind of screwed Georgia. And as a result of that, the Senate became 50-50 tied Republicans, Democrats. And then you know that Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote. She makes the one extra vote. So basically, thanks to Trump, the Democrats basically control the Senate. And that's the reason why they've been able to pass all of this legislation ever since Biden has been in power. The Inflation Reduction Act, the
you really think it's
infrastructure bill. Yeah, I do think it's because of Trump. Trump basically went to Georgia. Remember, he was trying to get those 11,000 votes out of Georgia, and he was saying that the Georgia elections were rigged.
So if this guy won in Georgia, it would have been different?
If what's that?
If this guy won in Georgia and Trump's never said that it was rigged, it would be different, you think?
I think Republicans would have turned out more for the election. I think Republicans in Georgia were pissed. A lot of them believed in Trump. And they were like, well, fuck, we're not going to go vote for the senator. What's the point? Mm-hmm. The election's rigged anyway,
Trump just wanted to, he wanted to be the only one who won, and he didn't really care if his party won or not.
And he wasn't campaigning with the Republican in Georgia, because this guy who had just come out and said that the whole election system was a fraud wasn't then going to go next to this guy and be like, and don't forget to all come out and vote. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't make any sense. And Trump is selfish. So what did he do? He, said that the whole thing was a fraud. And and you look at the election, it wasn't really an election, really. It was actually a fraud. You know what I mean? Like he was saying that sort of thing. And then, you know, that Republicans in Georgia were pissed and they didn't show up to vote, and Democrats did. And you have two Democratic senators in the state of Georgia, a state that used to be solid red. So he kind of screwed Georgia on that one, you know, and he kind of, and for that reason, Biden not only had control of the presidency, but he had control of the Senate and he had control of the House, and he was able to pass all of his legislation. Every single bill he wants to pass, he basically passes. So yeah, Trump kind of screwed over on this one. And basically Republicans need to be able to flip some of these states, you know. You look at Pennsylvania, that's the state where Dr. Oz is running. Dr. Oz has a good chance of winning that one. Nevada, they have a pretty good chance of winning in Nevada too. Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, he's a pretty solid guy. He's probably going to win. In Arizona, the Democrat Mark Kelly, he used to be an astronaut. He's pretty well liked, so he might not win. North Carolina, that's a pretty red state. That'll probably go to the Republicans. But really, it's close, and you need every single one of these states. So this brings me to what I wanted to talk about, which is Colorado. So in Colorado, the incumbent is a Democrat, Michael Bennet. But, you know, with inflation, with all this stuff that's going on right now, Republicans have a pretty good shot of winning a lot of these races. So the guy that's running against him in Colorado, let me pull up his thing here. His name is Joe O'Dea. And he's running against a Democrat in Colorado for Senate. But since he's running in Colorado, which is not really a red state, this is kind of a blue state, if even purple at all, he went out and he said that he's not really a Trump guy. Because he knows that Colorado is kind of a blue state, and he doesn't want, you know, his voters to be scared away by thinking he's associated with Trump. So he came out and he's like, yeah, I'm running as a Republican in Colorado, but I'm not really a Trump guy. You know, I don't really support Trump. I don't support his thing. So what does Trump do? He goes on Truth Social and he tweets this. Read it.
There's this rhino character in the great state of Colorado, Joe O'Dea, that is running against the incumbent Democrat for the United States Senate, who is having a good old time saying that he wants to distance himself from President Trump and other slightly nasty things. He continued, he should look at the economy, inflation, energy independence, defeating ISIS, the strongest ever border, great trade deals, a lot of trade deals, and much more before he speaks. And MAGA doesn't vote for stupid people with big mouths. Good luck, Joe.
So imagine when you have Democrats projected to win the Senate. You have these tight races where these guys are running like neck and neck. Everything counts. Everything matters. You have this guy who's trying to distance himself from Trump because guess what? Trump isn't that fucking popular anymore. After his whole January 6th rigged election thing, a lot of people gave up on him. So this guy's trying to win this election as a Republican, and Trump comes out and he slaps him. He calls him a stupid guy with a big mouth. Like, does he want the Democrat to win? Does Trump think that would be better? What is Trump's goal here? Why would Trump tweet something like that?
He doesn't like to get insulted. He doesn't like to be insulted, Liam. So please be sensitive to his feelings, okay?
I don't know, man. It just seems like with him, it's like there's no plan. It's literally just, he just vomits into his phone and, you know, pick up the pieces later, you know?
You know what, Liam? No, there is a plan. There is a plan, and he's defending himself. He's just going by his rule, which is to hit the person 10 times harder. That's his rule, right? If he's insulted, that's his rule.
I agree that that's his rule.
No, but I agree with you. He's like Kanye West. It's the same thing. They're both people who just say whatever and then they deal with the consequences later. And, you know, that whatever comes from a place of honesty, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes, you know, the less said is better. So...
yeah, but it's also like you have to... Trump is supposed to be a politician. He's supposed to want to save the country. He's supposed to think that Democrats are crazy and radical. And if he really thinks that, then wouldn't he want to help this guy? It's not only about this guy, Joe Dia in Colorado. It's about winning the Senate. It's about having control of the United States Senate. Like, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he doesn't even want to... By the way, let me just say this. Like, anyway, I just think that it's ridiculous. By the way, this guy, Joe Diaz, he never came out and said Trump was a fat guy with a big mouth.
Are we talking about Joey Diaz?
No, not Joey Diaz. Isn't it Joe Diaz?
No, I think it's Joey Diaz.
Joe Rogan, I want to win. I want to run for governor, for senator. Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, I'm going to put my ass on the table and I'm going to win this election, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, I'm going to take my balls and I'm going to win. I don't give a fuck about President Donald Trump, Joe Rogan.
Joey Diaz. He's running, right? Let's just pretend it's Joey Diaz and Trump is angry. And then Trump's like, fat Joey Diaz, everybody. Fat fuck Joey Diaz. He's just tweeting this stuff out. Anyways, enough on this story. I think we've had the viewers have had enough of this story. Why don't we go into the next story you have there?
The next story I have is that apparently the homeless people in New York, they're outraged because there's been the Republican governors have been sending migrants to New York, and they haven't had a place to put them, so they've been putting them in hotel rooms. And then recently they finally opened up this big tent, and I don't want to say a tent because you're going to picture like going camping. This thing is like a giant white tent that you would have at like a wedding. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
huge giant tent.
Yeah.
Like the things that they set up for like that you could play a football game in. I mean, this thing is gigantic.
It's like almost a dome kind of thing.
Yeah, a huge dome, and they set this up to take in the migrants, and it's very nice. They have these nice couches, and they set up these tables with TVs,
PlayStations, Xboxes,
and PlayStation, Xbox, all this stuff.
And then this homeless guy got pissed, right? He said, "They've got Xboxes. Get the fuck out of here." This is actually insane because you look at the video of inside, you wouldn't even think it's like a tent. It's like literally this is like a structure. But I mean, when you look at the beds and stuff, it kind of looks like Squid Games. You know, a little bit like it's bed to bed to bed to bed and just giant, yeah. You know, it must be like.
But that's the sleeping quarters. You know, you're just when you're there, you're just sleeping. It's not your living quarters. You know.
Yeah, no, but this is better than anything. I mean, you know.
I mean, I don't know why they don't see what I don't understand about this. Like, this is classic how government works. When there's like a big event, we're very good at like finding a solution. But when it's everyday stuff, we don't do jack shit. Why didn't they build this 5 years ago for homeless people? Yeah.
Because homeless people would fucking do drugs, take a shit on the ground, and fucking ruin it. These people, Liam, are these migrants. They're coming for better lives. They're not just bums, you know, hanging around the parking lot, you know. They've got Xboxes. Fuck that. You know, these guys are actually, some of them have families, but I agree they could have. I mean, you know, it's a very political thing because they're trying to save their ass when it comes to them. They want to come out on top with the virtue signaling and be like, see, we do something about the migrants. But when it comes to homeless people, they don't really do this, you know. But yeah, can you blame them though? Because what are you gonna do with homelessness? Are you gonna do this?
No. I think that what you just said, it kind of opened my mind. It's a really good point. Like these migrants that are coming here for a better life, and they've struggled to get here, mm-hmm. right? They've had to fight through. I remember when I was in Austin, Texas, we took an Uber, and my colleague speaks Spanish, and so he was speaking with a driver in Spanish, and the guy was telling us that he had come from Guatemala, and he was telling us about his journey. He came across the U.S. border at first illegally. And he was telling us about what he had to do, and he was telling us that he had to go through forests because it's not just a big road, you know. Mm-hmm. And he was walking, and he go through forests, and he got caught by Colombian police officers, and they were corrupt, and he had to pay them off. And it's just like, and he was sleeping in the forest at night, and there was animals, and it's just like this harrowing journey to make it to the United States. It's like when he got here, he wasn't gonna like get drunk in the parking lot. You know, he wanted to get to work, and he wanted to build a better life for himself.
Yeah, well, it's
a good point what you're saying. These people, they give them this, but they're very grateful, they're very appreciative. They're not gonna start shitting on the floor and rubbing it into the carpet.
Yeah, and I mean, you said a heroin journey. That's what the homeless people are going through, a heroin journey. So, you know, they're go on a journey to get the next bag.
Two different types of journey.
Shoot up, yeah. Taking a shit in the middle of fucking the street. That's their journey. So, no, I'm not. Obviously, they could have had problems at home, trauma. There's definitely a lot of things that make you, you know, become homeless. A lot of it is related to drugs and coming from a broken family or financial situation. But that's kind of what, like, I don't know, I was talking to this with Charles, you know, like immigrants, I feel like are going to be the next, at least in Canada, like they're going to be the next, like, I don't want to say elite because, you know, elite, you could say it's like, oh, like, the, you know, the very top. But I mean, like, at least people who live in nicer neighborhoods, I would say that's kind of, I think, going to be more and more immigrants because, you know, when I look outside, I see the homeless people, they're mainly white, you know. And it seems like, you know, the generation of white people, it's getting more lazy and more like, I don't know, maybe not lazy, but it just seems like the immigrants are going after all the crazy jobs, you know.
Well, the immigrants have that fire in their belly, right? They want to be successful. They're hungry to be successful. And then you have this whole generation of middle class, even lower class, like white people who have been here who don't have that because they've kind of had everything given to them.
Yeah, and they're out there dyeing their hair blue, fighting woke culture wars, while these immigrants, they don't give a fuck about it. My cousin is in engineering. He's at U of T, and he's half Chinese, half Iranian, and he tells me everyone is you know, an immigrant in the engineering program. And he also tells me that it's one of the most racist programs there is in the school. Like, the kids are just all racist. And I'm like, that's so funny because they're all immigrants, you know what I mean?
That's so interesting. Who are they racist against each other?
I guess they just talk shit, but it's funny, you know. They're doing it in a funny way. He's like, the way he was saying is like they're joking around, you know. They're not actually like. They're basically He taught me this term. I didn't know it before. He said they're based. And apparently based means, it's like the opposite of woke. It means like a person who's saying like a good statement or truth. It's like, oh, like Andrew Tate is based. That's what, you know what I mean? That or like this person is woke is the opposite of based. But no, my point is, like, those guys don't give a fuck like about any of these things that seem like they're so crucial and they're all taking up all our space, like that, whatever, you know, these things that woke and diversity, yada yada yada, they're out there trying to, you know, learn how to build a structure or you know, how to do hard things, you know, that me and you are not, you know, doing. So,
and that the people who are talking about woke are not doing either. Exactly. Right? So they're here, he's getting ahead while they're talking about these things that don't matter. Yeah, I used to volunteer at a homeless shelter, and I would like make food for them. That was like what I did. And I remember the lady there.
You did like, that out of all people? What
do you mean out of all people?
I can't imagine you doing that.
Yeah, I volunteered. I used to make sandwiches for the homeless every Wednesday.
You volunteered? Oh, for school, right. Because you needed the hours.
No, I didn't need the hours. I just did it.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, excuse me. Back to my story. I used to volunteer at a homeless shelter. I'd make sandwiches. And I remember the woman on the first day, she sort of explained to us how the whole program worked. And the way it worked is that if you needed a place to stay, if you were homeless, you came in and you could sleep there and shower there. And they had a little place to watch TV and to drink coffee and stuff. But during the day, they would kick everybody out. They were like, look, you can't stay here today. You can't stay here and sit around and get drunk and tell stories.
Go get jobs.
Yeah, during the day, you have to leave and go get jobs. Like, you have to go try to find work or do something. You want to go hang out at the park, do that. But you can't stay here. And that's why we had to make sandwiches. Because in the morning, they would give everybody a little bag with a little sandwich in it for their lunch. And they would send them on their way. And they would also help them get jobs. They had a place there where they could use the computer, where they could, if they went for a job interview, they could give a phone number and somebody would answer. It would be the homeless shelter. And they would, they could schedule them. There'd always be somebody to answer. Because that's the problem with a lot of homeless people. They say, oh, well, they don't have a phone. Or they don't have a house. Or they don't have a email address. They don't have access to internet. They can't fill out the application. Well, they had all that stuff. And they did all this. And during the day, you'd go out to your applications. And then if you found a job, you could actually live there while you were working, trying to get back on your feet. And they would connect you with the local bank that was happy to be associated with the shelter, that was happy to give them accounts. And then they would even help you get at what's called a halfway house. And it was a government-assisted living. It would be like a place that the government would help you with your rent while you collected some money while you were working. And then you would help you to get on your feet to get your own place once you had some money saved up. So like this place was like, and that's why for me, I don't want to say that I had no patience for homeless people. But after volunteering in that place, to me, it was very simple. There was places like that where these people could go get help.
This is in Canada, right?
No, this was in the United States. This was in Minnesota.
You did this in Minnesota?
Yeah, every
How
Wednesday.
Come you never told me. When? How old were you? When was this?
I mean, the 2 years that I was there, I did it. I did
just
the same
fun?
Place every year.
You're that compassionate that you did that?
No, we did it with our school. It was with the school.
School. Okay. The school. Now it makes more sense. I see you fucking going to school all day. You're like, I just gotta help the homeless now, I'm tired. I know I'm tired, but who really needs my help? The homeless. And then you go help the homeless. I don't see.
Yeah, well, the irony was when I was making the sandwiches, I was like, why the fuck am I making these sandwiches? They can make their own sandwiches, Like, why do they need us to make sandwiches?
Was it like simple sandwiches that you're just making?
Yeah, dude, it was terrible. It was bread, cheese, turkey,
that doesn't sound bad.
In the bag, that's it.
Did they put
but no
mayonnaise?
No sauce.
Did they put sauce?
No sauce.
Oh my god. Well,
no, because it had to last. We would make like fucking 200 sandwiches. It had to last the whole week. Maybe they had little packets. Maybe they gave them little packets with the sandwich.
Did you ever eat one of the sandwiches or like sit with one of the homeless guys and eat like lunch on your break?
No, because we would go during the day and they were all gone. They were kicked out.
Okay. So you didn't actually see any of the people. Did it smell in there like homeless people or not really?
No, it didn't. It didn't smell. They kept it pretty clean. But see, that was the thing is like the people, they ran a tight ship and they were there to help people get out of homelessness. They were there to put people back on their feet. Like they had a good plan. They had a method. And I remember me as like a logical person, like I really liked their method, the way that they kicked people out during the day, told them to go do something, like the way that they would help them get jobs. Like I really liked that. And I felt like I was happy to help them because I felt like it was actually like, it was a process. If we could filter more people through this and get them back on their feet, like I was making the world a better place. Mm-hmm. But the idea of just housing these people forever, like, I hear these things. It's like, well, we need free public housing. And it's like, why? Why do we need free? Like, I want free public housing. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why should I pay for rent? I pay $2,000 a month for rent, Mm-hmm. So, I think that we want to help people when it's in order to get them back on their feet. But anyway, all this to say that you're right. If you did this in New York City and for the homeless, it's like it would be a total fucking disaster. The difference is that these are people who want to help themselves. And the lesson you kind of learn when it comes to this is that you can't help people who don't want to help themselves. It doesn't matter how good your plan is, how much money you throw at it. If you have somebody who doesn't want to help themselves, there's nothing you can do. And don't take that lesson from me. Go look at a rich family. Go look at a rich family who's got a little shit kid. And they've spent all the money in the world on the best schools, the best car, the best therapist, the best tutors, the best everything. And this fucking kid just is determined to be a fucking loser and is going to end up dying of an overdose or wrapping his Porsche around a fucking tree, So if those parents can't save that kid, then the government can't save people on the streets who don't want to help themselves. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But sometimes those parents are not really great parents, That's kind of why the kid goes at that path. So it's not just the kid's fault.
That's true. That's true, but there's also exceptions. There's also times where kids start hanging out with bad kids at school.
That's true.
And then the parents try to... And then it's like, shut up, Mom. Leave me alone, you know?
Yeah, no. But, yeah, I agree. It's hard to help people, you know? Especially if they don't want to help themselves. But it's also hard to have discipline when when you're addicted to something, too, you know?
And that's the thing. It's like drugs and alcohol comes and screws everything up.
Yeah, exactly. But
and what must it be like for the people who, like, imagine having to clean a bathroom in a place where there's shit all over the walls. Like, who's gonna do that?
I don't know.
Who's gonna do that?
I don't know.
Would you do that?
Pas moi, Liam. Pas moi. C'est pas moi là.
Yeah.
So what else do we have here?
Well,
do we have more news?
I think that's it for news. I don't know what else happened.
The topic of the day.
Oh yeah, what's the topic of the? I feel like I just ranted about the topic of the day, but
no, it's okay. I use it's good to have a balance because I know I do a lot of ranting too on this show.
Yeah.
But the topic of the day is a friend of mine, actually a listener of the show, recently decided to adopt a kitten. And he decided to get it from it was actually a crack house cat. And I said, you want this cat just so you can get the bragging rights of getting a crack house cat. And he's like, yeah, that's fucking right. And I just wanted to, because I would never, ever, ever adopt a crack house cat because, I don't want to get like a guy with issues in my house, just in the morning you're sleeping and then you all of a sudden are here, I don't need that. So I guess that's the topic of the day. Like, adopting animals, either getting them as puppies brand new or saving the dogs or the cats, from this condition. Because I know a lot of people do it. But I think a lot of people do it just for the virtue signaling. That's what I think, including you.
Wait, they do what? Adopt like an animal from like a shelter? Well, I think that people are sort of embarrassed when you say, "Hey, where'd you get that dog?" "Oh, I got it from a breeder," or a pet store. Even worse, they're sort of embarrassed,
I'm not embarrassed.
Because there's all these dogs dying in the shelters.
It's true. It's sad, but at the same time, like, what if it's an inconvenience on me to adopt this dog because of the things it's going to cause in my life, And
it does. I've heard from tons of people who've adopted animals from rescues, and they have tons of trouble with these animals. It's not the animal's fault. They've been abused. They've been neglected. So yeah, if you want a nice fresh dog that you can train and not have to deal with any mental problems,
100%. It's as if you're, because dogs and cats, whatever, pets are like family. So when you bring this 5-6-year-old dog into your home, it's almost as if like you're a nurse dealing with someone that has dementia. Obviously you can feel compassionate, but you don't want that guy to be in your house. You know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of like I had a friend of mine recently who just had a baby. She just had a baby about
a friend of yours.
How months
old
ago.
Is she?
A friend of mine, and I went over to her house to see the baby because she wanted me to see the baby, and. Yeah, I hear you. And I went over to see the baby at her house, and I said to her, where did you get this baby? And she's like, well, I had the baby, me and my husband, we had sex, and I waited 9 months, and I delivered the baby. And I was like, why didn't you go down to the homeless shelter and pick up a homeless guy? and she was very embarrassed. But I just couldn't believe, with the number of homeless people we have, that she would, do this.
You make a very valid point, Liam. All the homeless. And look, you could say, the girl could have said, but Liam, it wouldn't be a baby. And then you could say, well, yeah, homeless people are babies, A lot of.
I was like, yeah, just like a baby, you gotta change the diaper.
Exactly. You gotta feed.
It's gonna throw up every once in a while.
You gotta wash them. You gotta give them haircuts.
They don't really know how to talk.
What the fuck are you talking about? They're like, they're not crying, but they're angsty sometimes. I want my fucking beer, and then you give them their little pacifier, their beer bottle. It's almost a baby. So why don't you adopt homeless people? They're basically babies. Let's make this a thing. Adopt homeless people. If you're such a good person and you're gonna adopt a rescue dog, when you're having a kid, just keep that in mind. That it's always an option to adopt a homeless person. It's an option. It's on the table.
It's an option.
Right?
It's on the table.
So
yeah.
Why not take it? It's an opportunity. And if you do this, you'll be a good person. You really will be a good person, because then you could tell people I adopted someone who is in need of a home, and they are no longer homeless.
It's true. I think we should end on that. That's a nice point.
But all that to say, thank you for tuning into the Aussie podcast. Liam was in Chicago, I think, doing a genocide on the the criminals that were there. I don't know what you were doing down there. What were you doing down there, Liam?
I was being a nice brother. I was moving my sister. Rented a truck
moving
and
his
moved
sister
her into a new apartment.
They basically they picked this part of the city that was being gentrified, and they had to kick out a family to get his sister into the home, and that's what happened in Chicago.
All right, and with that, we will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening.